Of the news agenda, and tonight we're heading to the United States for Uncancel USA. President Joe Biden and the Democrats have vowed to make billionaires cry with a massive new tax on the super rich.
I don't want to punish anyone's success. I'm a capitalist. I want everyone to be able to, if they want to be a millionaire or billionaire, to be able to seek their goal. But all I'm asking is pay your fair share. Pay your fair share. Pay your fair share. And right now, many of them are paying virtually nothing.
Unsurprisingly, there's been backlash from the Republicans. Here's what Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell had to say about the plans on Monday.
Far left is officially calling the shots. And that's where the latest new craziness comes into the picture. If public reporting has it right, the Democrats are so desperate to raise taxes that they're now proposing to tax money the American people haven't even made yet. This harebrained scheme would have the IRS penalizing people who've invested wisely and compensating people who've invested poorly, all independent of whether they have actually made or lost any money.
Let's speak now to top Washington insider Erol Morkoc. Hi, Erol.
Hi, how are you doing, Mark?
Very well. Taxes on the rich, so much for aspiration.
Right, yeah, the American dream is, perhaps a dream for you, your neighbor, and all of the cul-de-sac. On one hand, I have to admit that it's not a bad political strategy to say, we're only going to target, people with $1 billion, with $100 million a year. That's only 700 households. But this is the U.S. government. This is just how they get the foot in the door and set precedent. Quite frankly, the concept of taxing unrealized gains, I'll say this tongue-in-cheek, but it's a very real precedent. What's the difference between me buying a Powerball ticket for the lottery on Wednesday and from now until Wednesday, do I not have unrealized capital gains? Moreover, every time the capital gains tax has been lowered in this country, the actual revenue has been actually increased. When Donald Trump lowered the capital gains tax, which is the umbrella that this tax would fall under, the IRS actually, on just payroll taxes, on just investment in income, collected about $93 billion more. So you have a situation where, it's the blind leading the blind. People like Elon Musk are treasures. They are the great immigrants who come to this country, and they come to this country because there's a fair system. Now, asking them to pay their fair share, that's actually a real argument. Just because that there's loopholes and whatnot, the fact that some of these corporations are paying 0% effective tax, and my company down here in Florida can't, access that level of perhaps accounting trickery and whatnot is one thing, but closing loopholes that allow people to exploit existing wealth is much different than taxing unrealized wealth. This started in the office of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders 5-10 years ago, and it seeped through my alma mater at UC Berkeley all the way to being the talking point. And so when they say words like "make billionaires cry," what they're really saying is these guys are in the way, and as soon as they're out of the way, we're coming for you, which is what Donald Trump told us about the politics. They're not going after Elon Musk. They're coming after the middle earners, which is why Joe Biden has allocated some $87 billion for new IRS federal agents to go after people making $600 transactions. Because apparently the people who make $600 transactions are the billionaires who he's going to make cry. So he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. And honestly, as a marionette, I'm not surprised because somebody's pulling the strings, and I don't think they have any economic background. This is going to end terribly for American exceptionalism, American outside foreign investment. And quite frankly, the thing the Democrat Party doesn't seem to realize is that our top earners, our top performers can get on their planes and leave. It's not the billionaires you can keep here. And if you try to put an exit tax on people, that means you've created a prison. That's what they do in communist countries, not in America, not the America that I know. So that's Joe Biden's situation right now. He's not going to have the support of the American people, whether or not he thinks he can, play the cheap card of, we're only going after the billionaires. Everybody knows that that's just a Trojan horse for the rest of us.
Senator Elizabeth Warren, who campaigned for the presidency on a wealth tax protocol, has re-emerged to push for the bill, name-checking Jeff Bezos in a series of interviews. Take a look.
The American people get it. They get that the system is rigged. Teachers and nurses and firefighters are just tired of paying more in taxes than Jeff Bezos pays. This is one of those moments of reckoning. And the folks who have to be brought along are the folks sitting in Washington, the elected officials. And that's what I think we've got our toes right on the line to get done.
Let's defend Queen Elizabeth. Here's the point, Errol. America's broke. It needs the money.
America is broke. America does need the money, and America would be well advised to not find it through federal pork programs. I think what they're trying to do is have their cake and eat it too with inflation. If you wanted to all of a sudden take the U.S. dollar, which has not yet crumbled, I mean, for goodness sakes, perhaps they have a point. If they're about to inflate the currency into hyperinflation, you might as well get something out of it beforehand. But they quite simply, they are missing the obvious fact that when you run out of other people's money, there's nowhere else to go. If you were to tax all the millionaires in this country 100%, you could pay for the government for 4 months. All the billionaires generously, you could probably pay for the government for 12 months. And that's sort of the entire problem that we're running into, because they refuse to acknowledge that this is something that the American people are not going to stand for. And I think that the sort of double entendres, like these spending plans aren't going to cost anything, it's actually going to be a net positive to your country, the American taxpayer isn't buying. And so that's why Joe Biden is in there, repeating 5-6 times to the camera, because it's not resonating. And I don't think that strategy has produced the results that they're hoping, because at the same time they did this, they took away a lot of the social programs, like the free college tuition that they had promised everybody, and all of these things at the same time. So on one hand, they're promising we need to raise this money from all the billionaires to give you the free health care and the free this and that. And then they come back and say, oh, by the way, you're not getting any of that, and we're shipping your job to Sri Lanka. So it doesn't fit. It's almost to the point of beyond parity. It's dysfunction, and that's concerning, I think, for everybody.
Let's bring my panel in, Errol, if I may. Author and journalist Rebecca Reed, broadcaster and comedian Andrew Doyle, and political commentator Dominique Samuels. Dominique, what's your view about this? Because the bottom line is, whilst billionaires pay a lot of tax, they probably don't pay the same proportion as the rest of us.
I think that's a real problem, but I think, like Errol says, I think you should really focus on the loopholes that these billionaires exploit.
Well, good luck with that, Dominique.
Yeah, but because at the end of the day, if you raise taxes in that way, what they can simply do is move their wealth elsewhere. And then what you're stuck with is middle earners bearing the brunt of this. And what governments tend to do is they tend to say, oh, we're going to tax the rich. And then years later, you realise that what's actually happening is middle income earners are actually ending up paying more and not actually being told very honestly about it. So I think it's just a classic thing that you see all the time when governments say they want to tax rich people and they end up just taxing middle earners.
Andrew Doyle, you've got a few quid. What do you think?
I certainly don't. I mean, if you're suggesting that I'm in that bracket, you're way off the mark.
What?
Never say never, Andrew.
But let's play that.
Dare to dream.
Let's play that. Oh, I do. Let's play that imaginary game, though. I mean, if I were a billionaire, how would I feel about this? And I would expect to be taxed proportionately according to my wealth. It wouldn't bother me if I was that rich. I would expect to pay proportionately more tax. And so maybe we should be appealing to the super rich. And appealing to their conscience, because I just think that's an ethical thing. I mean, it's all very well saying, it's good to have an aspirational society where it is possible to become a rich individual, but the sheer extent of the disparity between the super rich and the poor is surely too egregious for any sort of civilized society.
Errol?
I would like to point out that a lot of this is paper wealth. It's not as though Jeff Bezos, who owns about 15% of Amazon, or Elon Musk, who owns 30% of Amazon, it's not that they have this billions of dollars in their account. So they would have to liquidate their company, which would then cause the valuation to plummet at the same time, reducing their net worth to liquidate the funds to pay the tax. And so I agree with you completely. Number one, there are loopholes that need to be changed. It's not fair for proportion these people to consider everything as investment income. There's a lot of people, and actually the one the high-frequency hedge fund traders, they're the biggest violators of this. And I do think that disparity is on paper great, but it's a paper disparity where you have working class people who have actual real net worths and billionaires who have net worths that are almost traded on multiples of valuation. And so there's also the fact that these are companies that have created a lot of wealth and jobs in their community. When Amazon was chased out of New York City by AOC, my state I grew up in, my home state of Virginia, was more than happy to welcome them because that was going to be hundreds of thousands of six-figure jobs paying property taxes and paying income taxes. So there's a larger, value in job creation stuff that these people get that they offset with taxes. For example, if Elon Musk doesn't take any profit this year, it's tough to say that he made money, even though his valuation goes up. So that's where the idea of these, unrealized profits taxes come in. And I think it is incumbent upon this billionaire class who has this disproportionate wealth to, we have Warren Buffett with the Giving Pledge and some stuff like that. But if there was a more concentrated and obvious consortium of good coming out of the billionaire class, perhaps on their own goodwill, they could give back a lot. And I think that, despite the fact that we don't give them a lot of credit, but they certainly don't seem to be a bunch of evil people, at least perhaps.
Rebecca, do you think billionaires... Thanks, Errol. Do you think, Rebecca, that billionaires are demonised? Ultimately, they are wealth creators, aren't they?
I don't give a whatever word I can't say if billionaires are demonised. Firstly, Jeff Bezos is worth 196.1 billion. I think the idea that he hasn't got a bill in his bank account, not true. Secondly, I think there is this bizarre mentality that some people have that we need to protect the billionaires. And I think it comes from this feeling deep down inside ourselves that none of us are poor or low earners or mid earners. We're all just like potentially billionaires. And when I make my billion, I don't want to have to pay that tax. No one here is going to be a billionaire. None of us. Nobody watching is going to be a billionaire. There are like 600 billionaires in the US. It's not going to be you. It's not going to be me. And the idea that you're expending your energy protecting them is bonkers.
I think...
And they're not, and also I think the idea that billionaires are such brats that when they're asked to pay the same proportional amount of tax as you or I, they're going to go, well, I'm leaving this country then. I'm going to go and live in Sarajevo. People like living in the US because it's a nice country and they like living there, running their businesses there.
I get what you mean. I think my issue really is in terms of the corporate power that billionaires do have because of the fact that, they do own so many different companies and it's essentially controlled by the same source. Take Mark Zuckerberg, for example. I think my issue really would be sort of trying to break up massive corporations that own several different companies, which actually stifles market competition and actually puts smaller businesses and other smaller franchises at a disadvantage. I think that's my issue.
I'm going to say I don't think anybody needs to be a billionaire. I think it's too much money for any one person to have.
Errol, briefly.
Well, I would say that I disagree in the sense that I do think that the capacity for extreme achievement should be there. But I also agree with you that something has to be done in the sense that the disparity is too great. And perhaps what Dominique suggested is more of the line that we can look at, breaking up big tech. Corporatism is not the same thing as capitalism. And our economy has slipped away from a free market, free competition into perhaps more of a closed market oligarchy than both the left and right would like to admit. So there definitely is room for improvement. But I would say I do believe the billionaire has a chance to exist, and the majority of multimillionaires are self-made, at least in the United States. So
like
there's something to be said for that. I understand both sides of the argument.
Well, there you are. Listen, Errol, great to have you on the show. Please come and join us again soon. There you go. Erol Morkoc, who is a top Washington insider, a political strategist of some renown. Interesting thoughts and a brilliant question posed by Rebecca Reed. I told you she was double boom because that is a question. Should there be billionaires? Is the existence of billionaires a symptom of a broken economy and a divided society? What do you think? What's your view on billionaires? mark@gbnews.uk. Also, should we put trigger warnings on books dealing with historical content? We'll be looking at this and